God's Bright Kids, a show by angelarts.biz. Here on this podcast show, you will find encouragement in the midst of the challenge of autism. We will share stories of how God works in the midst of those affected by autism, as well as how He uses ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Because there is hope, there is life, there is love in the midst of autism. And here is your host, Dana Susan Beasley.
I am your host, Dana Susan Beasley, and welcome to God's Bright Kids. It's Tuesday, April 9th, and I am recording this show in Colorado Springs, Colorado, where we survived a very windy weekend, but now it is getting to be nice and warm and pleasant. So I am excited to share with you today about helping your autistic child or yourself discover your callings. This is a topic that I am very excited about because exploring my callings changed my life. And it continues to be a miracle in my life. So, how can those on the spectrum find their callings and how can you help them? Now, a while back, I came across a mailing from a group called AspergerExperts.com. I'm on their mailing list. I highly recommend that you follow this organization and its founder, Danny Rady. But anyway, in this mailing, it said 90% of autistics cannot find employment. They can't find jobs. Now, while it is true that there are companies that seek out autistics, like tech companies, it is still very hard. And so what can you do? Sorry, I keep pressing down on my table and it makes noise. Anyway, so what can you do when it's hard for an autistic to find a job? Or you feel like they don't have the potential to do anything. Well, I always go back to my family as an example. And as I give these examples, remember that autism is a spectrum. It's on a spectrum, and there are many different levels and variations. Every person is unique. As the saying goes, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. But there are commonalities, so maybe these stories will help you. Now, for my husband, Travis, who is autistic or Asperger's, he's been drawing since, he was probably 7. He's been drawing buildings. That is his number one obsession. And so when I met him 28 years ago, I could tell that was his obsession, and I knew that he would make a good architect, and that's what we worked towards, is what I helped him to do. And he had a tough time at first because he didn't know how to interview. That was probably the hardest thing when he went from a facility manager to a draftsman architect or an intern architect. And so it took him a while to realize that it was the interviews, and it was also the fact that he didn't think of the garments that he was wearing. I had to help him along. So he did find some professional help in doing interviews, and then I kind of coached him along in what to wear. Now, back then, 28 years ago, 27, 26, however long, we did not know that he was autistic. We didn't know anything about it. It sure would have helped, but we didn't. But now, Travis is a licensed architect, and he has his own business. So this is an example of what these callings can do for you, of how you can take an obsession and turn it into a marketable skill and get a job and or start a business. Travis has done all of the above. So what callings what can callings do for you? What can they do for your child? And let's talk about what a calling is. A calling is something that deep down you are meant to do, that it's your destiny. It's something that's going to require a great deal of effort and practice, failure, success, failure, trial. It's going to propel you toward a bigger future and a greater future. It's going to, one, bring you closer to God, and two, make you or your child into the person that God made you to be. So when you are exploring these callings for either you or your children, you need to get a vision or help them get a vision for it. Now, for Sam, my son, I also saw in him a great deal of artistic ability. I mean, he gets it from his dad. He gets it from me because I'm artistic too. Or artistic, not autistic. I don't think I'm autistic, but anyway. So I saw his ability, and he had goals. Like one of his goals is to buy a car, buy a Jeep. And he does want to be independent someday. He's 23 right now, but he wants to definitely be thriving. And so I had to help him through that and guide him. I had to help him learn or translate or bridge a gap between his talents, his obsessions, and marketable skills, just like I did with his dad. For me, long time ago in the 90s, I was a full-time graphic designer, and I realized that I didn't like that. I realized that I didn't have to be one thing in life, and that excited me. So I went through this particular time where I was very lost because I didn't understand what my callings were. And I started to get a grasp on them and write them down, and I wrote down 5 key things. And then I started to flesh it out, and I happened to be working at an organization called the Navigators that gave me training on how to develop my callings, and so I eventually made it into a chart. I mean, I'm a graphic designer. I think visually, so I was like, why not? So that's what I did. That was my particular journey, and it completely changed my life because one of the things that I wrote on my original list, and it's still there today, top thing I wrote was marriage and family. And at the time, I had just broken up with my fiancé. So I didn't see any, thing happening in that regard, but it turned out that I met my husband on a blind date in 1995, and now we've been married for over 25 years. So I put that out there. I gave that calling to God, and he moved big time. I mean, it was swift. All right, so how can we help our children discover their callings? Or, maybe you're the one who needs to discover your callings. Well, first of all, it takes exploration and analysis to discover new things, to test it out. It's a matter of just trying. Sorry, my table went wonky again. So, today I had this wild thing happen. Totally wild. I was perusing around in Facebook in the local information group, and I saw somebody that was looking for a singer for an assisted living place. And I've been singing since I was at least 7. My sister taught me to sing and play the guitar. And I love performing, and it's something that I know I have a calling for, but I have put it on the back burner for one reason or the other. And then I saw this today. And I just put it out there. That's what I did. I just kind of raised my hand and said, I can do it. And I have a paid gig to sing at an assisted living place in May. Now, there are a lot of details to work out, including getting my voice back in shape, because through sleep apnea, etc., my voice has definitely not been very good. So now I have motivation. But it was that moment when I just put myself out there, and who knows, I may flop, but you know what? I might not. I might really love it, but I won't know unless I try. And so giving your kids those kinds of opportunities, giving yourself those kinds of opportunities is what helps you discover your callings, because it's in those aha moments that you go and that they can go, yes, this is what I am meant to do. I remember way back when I was in college, I had started an arts anthology. I was very, very passionate. Sorry, I keep hitting the table. Very passionate about publishing. That's another one of my passions. I'd been passionate about that forever. I used to make magazines, like cutting and pasting and printing and, like handwriting when I was a kid. And I loved everything to do with publications. So I found myself actually starting my own arts anthology in college. And I was reading submissions, and I was sitting there, wherever it was, in the student center or something, reading the submissions, and I just had this feeling wash over me. This is what I meant to do. It was such an aha moment. But in all of these endeavors, we have to, very, very key point, we have to let go of perfection, and especially help our children let go of perfection. That is something that I've been trying to instill in my son, and it's tough for him. But there's this saying, and I didn't say it. I don't know who said it. Progress, not perfection. So, letting go of perfection is going to be a key in helping them to discover their callings, or helping you to discover your callings. Here's what you can do if you're a parent to an autistic child. You could be a model. You have talents. I believe that every single person on earth has been given talents by God. You have hidden gems inside you. Nurture those talents. Even bridge the gap. Find out, okay, I have this talent, I have this gift. How can I turn it into a skill? And then how can it be marketable? Maybe I can start a little business. That was the number one thing that helped my son, because since 2004, I have been avidly pursuing business. I started with music, teaching, and then art cards. I've done one thing after another. And so he's seen this. And a few years ago, he came to me and said, Mom, I don't want to have a job. I want to be an entrepreneur like you. Well, of course, I was thrilled. And that is definitely my number one job, is to help him become a successful entrepreneur. But I had to model that, and I have to keep modeling it. And I particularly have to model letting go of perfection. Something I actually learned long ago, but I keep having to remind myself of that, because even with this new opportunity I have with singing at an assisted living center, I have to let go of that perfection. Okay, I'm making progress. Who knows? Maybe it's just one little step in a series of other steps that will lead to something. Maybe not. Maybe something big will happen after that. I don't know. But the point is, I have to be focused on making progress rather than being perfect. So that is definitely an extremely important mindset to have when you are discovering your callings or helping your children to discover their callings. So how do you do that? How do you discover their callings? Well, You listen, you observe. For me, long ago, I observed that Sam, my son, definitely was artistic. He's been drawing since he was 7, and he's been drawing in 3D. My husband and son used to draw together. That's how it started. And so I saw that, and then I saw his acumen for computer software. And that's when I got the aha moment after he told me that he wanted to be an entrepreneur, that, you know what, he needs to be my apprentice. And I need to teach him graphic arts. I had just happened, one of the things I had done was to create a curriculum all about becoming an entrepreneur. And part of that is a tutorial on graphic design. So I just taught him that. And I taught him some specifics beyond that. He took it and he ran, and he's done 2 paid book cover design jobs. He's done a 3D modeling job for Travis, because the other thing we noticed, or I noticed, was that he was spending a lot of his time creating 3D worlds for games. And I realized, okay, he could take that and he can make 3D buildings. He could do 3D modeling. So we got a program called SketchUp, and we got a job, we got a project doing a plan for a duplex or a custom duplex, and my son learned on the job. He hadn't really played around in SketchUp before that much, and he did it on the job, and he did fantastic. He actually did better than even my husband could have done. And now he's working on a tiny home. We're planning on selling the plants. So it was through my observation that led me to seeing, okay, he really loves this. How can we nurture this? Early on, when we started homeschooling, he would go to art class. There's a local fine arts center that has art classes, so I sent him there for a while. And I was always doing something like that to nurture those talents. I know that we did invest in software that he wanted. I'm totally fine with doing that, and it's definitely paid off. So through this process, you analyze passions, dreams, talents, gifts, life experiences, values, and personality. And then if you analyze all of that, if you ask questions like, well, what is his passion? What does he spend his time doing? What does he dream about? What does he want to do if he has that in mind? What are her talents? What is naturally she is good at? And those gifts that God has given her. What are his life experiences? Even as a child, what do they value? What is their personality? There's a big difference if you're an extrovert versus an introvert. So if you're an extrovert, you're going to want to be out in public frequently. If you're an introvert, then you're not going to. You're going to want to, for the most part, there are exceptions, of course, you're going to want to be more in the background. So analyzing all of that will get you a picture of your callings, of their callings. And the way to think about passions is think about those things that you can't stop thinking about. What is it that they can't stop thinking about? That might be an obsession. That might be their obsession or your obsession. So how can you turn that into a calling? How can you bridge that gap that I was talking about? And then most of all, spend time praying. Soak up his presence and pray for your child. Pray and pray and pray. And just spend time with Jesus, praying and thinking about your child. Spend time with Jesus with your child, with your whole family. And there are several passages I recommend. 2 Corinthians, all of it was such an inspiration to me when I started to explore this area of my life, these callings, huge. And then Psalms, like Psalm 1, for example. And let me just find that real quickly and read it for you. Hold on one second. So Psalm 1 is probably one of my favorite. Oops, I mistyped. All right, Psalm 1 says at the very end of it, Sorry, table. Okay. Verses 1 through 3. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. So whatever kind of talent your child has or you have, then nurture that. That is like water, and it's going to grow, and they're going to be prosperous. Isn't that what you want for your child? Isn't that what you want for yourself? So, help your child relentlessly pursue their callings, and do that yourself. As I said before, God made each person unique. That means you, that means your spouse, that means your children, whether a son or daughter. And if you model that, then your children will take notice. And if you guide them, if you listen to what their interests are, and if you help them turn that into a marketable skill, then you will be amazed at what they can do. And like I said, I've seen this in me. I've done this since 1995, and I've had amazing opportunities and things that I never imagined would happen, like we started a live action role-playing club because, again, I was observing and I was watching to see what kind of video games my son was playing. And he was playing when he was like 11 or 12, however old that was, I forget. But he was playing a lot of medieval skirmish games, which gave me the idea to start a live action role-playing club, which we run to this day. Sorry, I had to take a drink of water. But we run that, and now my son is my assistant. It's just him and me running that now. But it started because I observed, and I wanted to help him get out of his shell, get out of being lost in his own world and being stuck on the computer. And that's how I did it. And now that is part of what he does. And I actually give him a little salary for it. So, and then also Sam, with his artistic ability, whether it's 3D modeling or graphic arts. And we also recently, I took his photographs and some of my photographs, and I created a calendar. And then I also had them printed into really nice prints. And back in January, we had a little celebration, and I got a bookstore here in town to let us sell the calendars and the prints, and it was a celebration of his launch into his artpreneur career. And that was a really special time. Now, did we sell buku books or prints or calendars? No, but it was a step, and my son was happy about that. And so, that was just a little step we took. Yes, there's more to learn, especially when it comes to selling on an e-commerce site. But I took that step, and I know how to make a calendar. So, that's definitely one of how I am helping Sam. And then for me, I am avidly pursuing my talents as a course creator, as a curriculum writer, as an author. The other thing that has enabled us, or me, to really pursue my dreams is my son, for sure. He is such a source of inspiration. Because, I keep rattling things. He, long ago, he told me one night, Mom, I want you to go bigfooting with me. Now, Sam is heavily into cryptozoology. And when he said that, I was a little afraid, but intrigued, because I'm a child of the 70s. I grew up with Leonard Nimoy, and watching these movies, documentaries about Bigfoot. And even though I was scared, it really intrigued me. So that next summer, we went on our first expedition up in Bailey, Colorado. And it was so funny. I was so scared. But I didn't give in to that fear. I love the saying, I felt the fear and I did it anyway. And I fell in love with it. And then it gave me an idea about a book. So I've been writing this book about a junior Sasquatch and an adolescent Asperger child or teen that meet. And it is a hoot to write. And I'm probably maybe halfway there. I'm not really sure. I'm just having fun doing it. And my goal is to publish that maybe this summer or the next. But it has been just so much fun. But if I had given in to my fear, I never would have done that or even had the idea. And then we're going out on all these expeditions. We've been to so many, and Sam had shown me these YouTube videos of people who do expeditions, and I thought, why not try that? And so I started to do YouTube videos, and now I have I have 300 subscribers, and one of my videos has 26,000 views. I never expected to do any of this, and I'm at the core of it, a very shy, introverted person. Whoops, now I just knocked my watch on the table. So if I can do that, so can your child, so can you, whatever it is that they're interested in it. But it really makes life so much more joyful. I look forward to going out in the woods and I look forward to being able to write a little bit every day. I try to. So that's just a little bit about me. And then there's my husband who, like I said, was into buildings. Buildings. It's all, if he had a choice, it's all he'd talk about. The built environment and on and on. But I learned to help him channel that. And so now he is working on several consultant jobs. He also does engineer work like mechanical and electrical and plumbing. And he finished that duplex job I was talking about. And my job is to get him jobs, so I have to figure that out. But I know that he is so talented, and one of my goals for both him and my son Sam is for them to learn how to do architectural painting. And so I got a course for them. I just have to help them get through it, because starting anything is so hard, especially when you've got so many projects going on. So that's just a little bit about my family and how we have delved into our callings, and we have used them to create a career, basically, to start our businesses. And the thing is, again, don't be perfectionistic. It's okay to fail. There's no such thing as failing. It's just failing forward. That's all right. Don't give in to fear. Feel the fear and do it anyway. And take baby steps. Now, when I first started homeschooling Sam in second grade, my sister-in-law, who had homeschooled a lot of children, she has 5 and she homeschooled every one of them, she said, she asked me, how do you eat an elephant? The answer is 1 bite at a time. So just take little bites. I try it like with my singing. I try not to think of, I'm going to make a hit, and then I'm going to be asked to sing everywhere, and I'm going to have these big concerts. I really don't have that kind of goal anyway, to be like some mega star. That's not in my goals, but to be able to go around to different places and minister to people, and then to be paid for it. I never even considered being paid for it. So I just need to take that one little step at a time. It's making me, go, okay, I need to fix my guitar. I need to get some equipment. But that's okay, because I'm going to be paid and I'm going to be pursuing this, hopefully. So it's not going to be a loss, more than likely. But I can't think of the whole thing. All I could think of is the next step and the next step and the next step. So one of my next steps is to practice regularly and to improve my voice. So I started. And then on Friday, I plan on taking my guitar in and see if I can get it repaired. So those are the baby steps that I need to do. And then another thing that you could do is to journal and journal and journal. And if your kids are into journaling, all the more better. Now, my son is not into that at all, so nor is my husband, so I do all the journaling in the household. I love journaling, I always have. But anyway, journaling really helps. And then also writing mission statements. That's really how it all happened for me, was writing that first mission statement, which was based in 2 Corinthians. And it said basically that my mission statement is to pass on the comfort to hurting people, the same comfort that God has given me. And that goes through every single thing I do, and why it turns out that kids with autism and grown-ups with autism are so dear to me, because they are hurting in many ways and they need help and guidance. So I am happy to pass on the comfort that God has given me to people. And then another thing that you can do is create a vision board. Very popular to do. Take some old magazines, cut them up, put them on a board. Now, if you're like me and not so much into that tactile stuff and you're into technology, use Pinterest. Create a board on there and collect a bunch of pictures, and there you go. And then, lastly, read books like What Color is Your Parachute and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, these were 2 books that really changed my thinking, shaped my thinking when I was a young 20s when I started to read these. What Color is Your Parachute taught me that life experiences are important, and they have an exercise in there. The author has an exercise where you write down stories from your childhood and of achievements, or not just childhood, but any achievements that you make, you write a story about it. And so one of the stories in my life when I was a child was this. In 3rd grade, my teacher read to us The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And I was enthralled. Now, I was already familiar with Lord of the Rings and so forth, but that I was just a goner for Narnia. And so we had this backyard. I lived in New Mexico, in Albuquerque. We lived in the Northeast Heights, and to the back of us was this mesa, and we had this back gate. And so I made the back gate the wardrobe, so to speak, and out that back gate was Narnia, and I mapped it. There was like all these dirt roads and stuff, and my brother had dug a hole, and we called that the Castle of Cair Paravel. And my friends and I would be out there probably till 9 p.m. in the summer having Narnia adventures. This is what I did as a child. And then when I got older, when I got into college, I have lots of nieces and nephews, and I taught my nieces and nephews how to play Narnia, and they taught their siblings, who taught their siblings, until finally one of my nephews really got enthralled by it, and he got into the Society of Creative Anachronisms, started doing some LARPing things, and we were talking and realized that what I had done was called LARPing, but it was not as sophisticated as what happens today. So that was the beginning of our LARPing adventure, and it all started when I was a child, when my teacher read to us The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So these experiences are important and can shape your life and can shape the life of your child. What Color is Your Parachute is a really good book. And then the other one, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Always keep the end in mind. This is something that I have known since I was in my 20s, and it shapes me. It shapes everything I do. I make lifelong goals, yearly goals. I think how to break those down into quarterly goals, monthly goals, weekly goals, and daily goals. And so I'm always writing my goals down, even though I don't like schedules, but it's really important to me to write down these goals and that they're actionable and achievable. Sometimes not always, because again, perfection is not a good thing. It's progress. Progress. So sometimes I don't do it all, and that's fine. But I'm reaching, and I'm reaching, and I'm reaching. And that is modeling that kind of lifestyle to my son. And that is having an effect. And that can help you too. All right. So that is definitely one of my passions, is helping others to discover their callings and passions. I hope that encouraged you. And that is all I have to share. And let's see, I will be back next week, and I will be sharing, let's see, what will I be sharing? See, I am not perfect. I don't have that in front of me. But what I will be sharing is kind of a companion to this, and that is 5 steps to unlocking the creative genius in your autistic child. So it kind of goes along with this. I'm just kind of continuing the theme. So we will go over that in detail next time. All right. So with that, as I click through all these documents, that I will be doing next week. And the show, again, is always 6:30 Eastern Time on Tuesdays. That's when I publish the episode. So thank you for listening to today's episode. Be sure to tune in April 16th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Together we will reach new heights in our lives and beyond, because there is hope, there is life, there is love, even in the midst of autism. Blessings to you. This is Dana Susan Beasley of angelarts.biz signing off.